Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is Kate Kunau from the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art. If you're watching the video, you can tell that Kate's actually in her office, I believe. So that's kind of a nice change these days. But, museum, that's the perfect socially distanced activity
It
because
really is. We haven't been selling it for years, and now that social distancing is a thing where it's our time to shine.
there's plenty of space that you can socially distance.
Mhm.
Everything is kept clean, and you're not supposed to touch anything.
Exactly. You're not supposed to touch anything ever, and so this is really the moment we've been building towards. But yeah, we invested in a lot of plexiglass barriers and a lot of Clorox wipes, so we're cleaning things every day and creating distance and barriers between visitors and front desk staff and people who work in the store. So yeah, it's a really great place to be able to come right now and just kind of get away from everything for a bit.
You have a new exhibit starting to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the museum, and we sure didn't expect this was how the celebration was going to go, did we?
We had such plans for 2020, such plans when the year started. But we've been able to, we stretched the Impressionism exhibition, and that stayed throughout our shutdown, which was like March through June. And then we were able to reopen that one. And yeah, now or I'm in the process of just finishing up the installation of 125 masterworks from the collection. And that was supposed to be in the summer, and now it's going to be our fall show. So we had to tweak a little because of COVID, but I'm really excited that we can get this out this year because it is a celebration of our collection, and almost 100% of our collection was either piece of artwork donated by collectors in the area or purchased artwork with money given from people in the area. So it's a very community-based collection. And so I think this is actually a really great time to celebrate both like our venerability as an institution and very much the community that created us 125 years ago and has sustained us for that long.
I have to kind of start by insulting you, which is
Please.
a perfect way to start out an interview, right? Because when people maybe think of the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art, they may think, oh, Grant Wood, Marvin Cohn, our, Bertha Jaquez, if they're very, very hip, regional
That's a deep
artists.
cut, Dennis. That one's a deep
Yeah.
cut.
But people are probably not aware of the depth and breadth of the collection, but the 125 works that you've picked still just scratch the surface. When
Oh my
you
goodness.
first arrived at the museum and started, looking through the collection, were you surprised at how much was in there?
Very much so. There are about 8,000 pieces of artwork in our collection, and so narrowing to 125 was definitely the work of months. Like it was a project that I just kept at over months. The collection is largely American, 19th, 20th, 21st century American, but there's obviously like the Roman bust collection. We have some wonderful European works and African works, Central American ones as well. So it was fun and very daunting to refine from around 8,000 down to 125. But yeah, I've been here about 5 years now. And so I have gotten a chance to know the collection through various other exhibitions that I did and just poking around downstairs in our storage, which is always a lot of fun. So there are some really great names in here. As you said, there's Grant Wood and Marvin Cohn, Maurizio Lazansky, Bertha Jaques, kind of our heavy hitters that we always like to focus on. But there are also big names that I think maybe people won't expect. There's Andy Warhol, there's Picasso, Matisse, Miro, lots of fun people like that. We have a really beautiful Roy Lichtenstein that we just got. But we also have some really fantastic pieces that people might not be as familiar with. Mildred Pelzer, who is an Iowa muralist who worked in the 1930s primarily. A really enormous and lovely triptych by a German artist, Ulfert Wilke. So it's been really fun to put together. It's an interesting layout because there's usually, kind of more of a theme to an exhibition. And so when I'm laying out the show, there are, these things need to go together. This is a narrative that I want to emphasize. And this exhibition is kind of all like really good, big work. So it was an interesting challenge to kind of put that together in any sort of copacetic way.
What is there a theme or an aim or a goal in terms of acquiring new works, or that the museum has used kind of throughout its history? What you get, obviously, if a piece is donated, in most cases, if it's something that will fit the collection, you accept it.
Mhm.
But if you get a donation and someone just says, buy what we need, what are some of the criteria the museum uses to expand the collection?
We definitely have decided that we focus primarily on American artists, I think, which makes a lot of sense. So we look for contemporary American artists, artists who are doing really interesting things. We definitely always have a section for local artists because that's how we started, with Grant Wood and Marvin Cone and supporting the local art scene, which has always been a really important part of our mission. So collecting from talented local artists is always really big, but we also try to keep an eye on kind of the overarching art historical narrative in this country and buy very selectively and create a collection that really reflects where American art is going overall. As I mentioned, we do have some international aspects as well, and those are on kind of a more aesthetic basis. If we think something is going to be useful in an exhibition or that we would get a lot of wear, as it would be, out of it, we would pick something like that up too. But I would have to say we're offered donations all the time, and honestly it's mostly a process of like, well, I don't think that would work for us, but have you tried this institution? So we're very particular about what we bring into the collection.
Speaking of local artists, the other exhibit you have going on is one from my friend Mary Zeran, who I've
Yeah.
gotten to know at different events over the years. And we haven't talked with her specifically about this, although I know I talked to her about it in an interview we did some time ago. So that one kind of snuck in, but that was one of the things that you set up as a goal for the 125th celebration, was to not just feature local artists or buy the occasional piece, but actually do a show featuring a local artist. So yeah, talk just a little bit about that exhibit and why Mary, and what are some of the highlights there.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, supporting local artists is a really important part of the CRMA's mission. And because that's been such a big part of our history, we knew we wanted to do a local artist show in our 125th anniversary year just to emphasize its importance to us. And Mary actually approached us a couple of years ago now because 2020 was going to be the 10th anniversary of her working full-time as a professional artist, which is a big professional milestone, as anyone who does creative things in their spare time knows. To be able to stop working the day job and create art full time is a really big deal. So her exhibition is celebrating kind of the last 10 years of her career and looking at where she came from and where she's gone and how her art has changed and evolved in these 10 years that she's been able to devote herself full time to it. And it also includes a really cool, very large scale installation piece created just for the exhibition here. So that's a real celebration of her work and our collaboration with her.
Talking with Kate Kunau from the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art about 125, the 125 works out of the collection to celebrate the anniversary of the museum, as well as Mary Zeran's 10th anniversary show, which is going on. When does 125 open? Is it already open or is it coming up?
I'm just finishing it up. So it opens on September 26th, which I believe is a Saturday without looking at a calendar. So that should be open next Saturday, I believe. And Mary Zeran's show is currently open, and they both run through the end of the year.
I know it's hard to pick a favorite, but as you are putting these up and arranging them, what one or two pieces do you just step back and go, I am so excited to have people see this in the space?
It is really hard to pick a favorite, because especially in this exhibition, because it's so many different pieces that are very disparate and don't really go together thematically or aesthetically. But it's actually the biggest piece in the exhibition. It's a really 80 inches by 121 inch work by Mildred Pelzer. And it's the entire state of Iowa. She created it as a mural in 1935 to celebrate a centenary of Iowa's progress. So she was painting 1833 through 1933. And it is the entire state. It's bounded on both sides by the Mississippi and the Missouri. And she tried to paint in almost every little small town. And so she gives a little tiny skyline and labels the town, and sometimes she'll add something about its history. But it's really fun. It's enormous, and it's really fun to look at, just to see, she added like the Mormon handcart path. And in my personal favorite, there's a little section that says many German people here. So as a German, I feel very seen. So I think that one might be my favorite. It is also enormous and took 4 people to bring from storage up into the galleries.
I've never thought about the size of your storage area to keep items like that in place, but it's the museum is kind of like an iceberg. 90% of it is below the surface, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's only a small fraction that's ever on view, and everything else lives very quietly underneath us.
I know that because of COVID, we aren't doing the usual opening receptions and things like that, but do you have any programming associated with the exhibit?
Yeah, I am doing a talk at the African American Museum on Thursday, October 1st, and it's focusing on Black artists that are in 125, because we have several amazing examples of Black creators in that show. So I'm giving a talk there at 7 p.m., socially distanced, of course, and I think we'll also record it as well. So yeah, I'm going to focus on some amazing artists like Henry Osawa Tanner and John Wilson, Allison Sarr, all of whom are in the 125 exhibition. So that's a really fun project that we've been able to do with the AAMI, which is fantastic. So we have that, doing our regular art bites. So those are our monthly talks that are at 12:15 on the first Wednesday of every month. We're doing those in person. We do require masks. If it's a bigger group, we have been splitting it up so there's no more than 12 people in every group, so that people can maintain social distance. So yeah, we're not doing quite as many programs as we usually do, but I think we found some good ways to, keep people informed and keep reaching out to people with art in these strange times.
125 opens on September 26th, and Mary Zeran's exhibit is going on now, and they'll be available for the next several months. So like we said at the top of the interview, museum is a perfect place to be physically present doing something during our strange times, because it's in some ways perfectly suited to our new socially distanced culture.
The host has arrived.
Thanks so much for joining me today, and good luck with the rest of the setup. Don't strain your back putting those giant pieces up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the exhibit. Good luck with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio many weekdays at 10:20, or download the podcast, watch or listen on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or using your favorite podcast app. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.